for Connecticut, so I had a reverse commute. It's been about 45 minutes to 3 hours, depending on the day, in the car. And I learned to listen to podcasts, and I found that for myself, I grew professionally way faster than all my peers, mainly just because I was introduced to topics during my downtime of just sitting in the car back and forth. So if you're not doing listening to podcasts, I highly recommend it. And the reason why I bring this up is to let you guys know that I recently started a podcast with Kaushik Gopal from Wedding Party app. Kaushik is in Palo Alto. Of course, I'm here. And we are the Fragmented Podcast. And so we're basically a podcast tailored directly towards Android developers. So if you do Android development and you want to learn more about it, it's just Kaushik and I. We discussed various topics. This last week, we just had Dan Liu on, and he's a Google GDE for Android. And we talked about RX Java. It's actually a two-part series. So if you guys are interested, check it out. We're actually the only independent Android development podcast that's out there. Other than that, there's only one from Google. It's called Google Developers Backstage, and that's by the guys who build Android themselves. So check it out. If you guys have it, it's just fragmentedpodcast.com.
Hey guys, lots of people were like, hey, I can't make it. Can you guys see if you can record it or stream it? I'm like, okay, we'll try it. So we put up Google Hangout. So
was it live?
Yeah, it's live.
Let me tweet it.
Yeah,
tweet about it.
We posted it in the meetup website. And,
What's the reference to your Hangout?
It's on the meetup discussions. So it's streaming live right now. So say hi to your home or whatever. So for everybody who's new here, so we are the meetup.
Testing out there.
Mobile meetup. We meet on the third Thursday of the month. In case you're not wondering. We do monthly events and a yearly conference, and have awesome speakers like Donn Felker and other awesome speakers in the Valley come and talk technology. Last month we had Intel talking about their IoT stuff, and also looking for other new ideas of what you guys want to listen to and all that stuff. Another great speaker walked in, so I'll leave the floor to Donn.
Let me know as soon as you tweet that out, then I'll just open up Twitter real quick. Tweet it, okay?
Trying to copy it from there.
Anyway, does anybody work with build variants in here? No? Everybody, this is Mike. Mike runs the Phoenix PDG with me, also known as PHX Android. So for those of you that are interested in Android as well, we do a lot of Android talks at the PDG as well. You want to let's go around the room real quick, introduce ourselves. My name is Donn Felker, as you guys have heard. I'll explain a little bit more about myself in a moment. Starting in the front.
Lauren Schweitz. I've actually kind of evolved in the last couple of months, but building a mobile platform right now in iOS and Android web. So been hanging out with you guys for almost a year and a half now.
Definitely, yeah.
And with Busher, we get on server per day and have fun software.
My name is Bana. I work with Rescom. I'm working with XMP Technology.
Welcome.
I'm Aaron Davis. I'm a software engineer, and I just got the app 3 days ago.
Cool.
So I'm just trying to learn right now.
Cool. Good place to start.
Well, my name is Kevin Klopp. I'm a senior web guy. Do a lot of front-end stuff. Looking for some kind of Android build to put on a little tablet for my kids so they won't be freaking out and going into different things. So, it doesn't exist. Maybe I'll.
Well, it exists.
I know. I gotta find it.
Oh, I'll talk to you after.
Sounds great.
We're doing introductions.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah. I'm Sitaram. I work for Cisco Systems. I work mainly on server code, but recently started working on JavaScript and HTML5.
Okay, great.
Mike Wilson, currently sort of independently employed, I guess. And I'm an Android developer and currently doing kind of an Internet of Things project.
Mike is the only Google GDE for Android in Arizona, right?
In Arizona, yeah.
That's right. So he is the resident Google GDE. Thanks, everybody. All right, so today we'll talk about Android build variants here.
Can I only hear him though?
But
You guys kind of
introduce each other.
Yeah, I'm Kieran. I'm one of the organizers, co-organizers for the meetup. I run engineering at Trimble Outdoors. We do GPS-based applications.
I'm Pranil. I'm one of the organizers of this meetup. I run a startup. We do mobile apps, iOS, Android. We work with startups and enterprises to ensure their entire mobile portfolio. We're trying to tweet a link.
Are you on Meerkat, or what is it at?
No, it's Hangouts on there.
So if you're following me on Twitter, you'll see the link.
Oh, it says not on Meerkat. I got it. I'm like, what?
Well, if Meerkat had a web version, I'd be on it. So
Checking it out right now.
What are you doing now?
the link for the
Slides?
no, the live stream. As these days it's being called meerkatting.
Cool. I guess I don't care about the live stream,
Probably not.
but other people that aren't here, so.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll talk about Android build variants today. A little bit about me. My name is Donn Felker. Best way to get a hold of me is through Twitter here at Donn Felker. If you send me an email, it may take a day or 14 to get back to you, unfortunately. I've written a couple of books on Android. I am the co-host of the Fragmented podcast, which we recently started about 2 months ago. And with Mike here, I'm the co-organizer of the Phoenix GDG and PHX Android. You can read my website at donnfelker.com, and I have some screencasts that I do at caster.io. So that's awesome. So today we'll talk about build variants. This slide actually has nothing to do with the talk whatsoever. It's just I thought it was cool because there was a car. It's called variant. So I thought I'd put it in the slide. So let's talk about what they really are. This is kind of a definition that I kind of just wrote up when I was creating the slides here, and it made kind of sense, so I kept it. So build variants allow you to quickly create different versions of your app from the same source code. And I say kind of in there because there's some shared source code, there's some shared source code that's not the same. And that's going to be the variations that we work with. And what they allow you to do is create these different runtime environments so you can create different types of applications. One nice thing you could do with this is if you have a free and a pro version and you would like to release a free and a pro version, there's a lot of apps that do this. You can do this with a single code base. This was possible in Eclipse, also possible with Maven, though both ways are not as nice as it is inside of Android Studio with Gradle. So we'll kind of talk about how you can build these different runtime environments today. At the end, they basically facilitate the composability function within an Android. We can actually create different folders and different files override other files. And if you're using dependency injection, you can really get into some really cool, crazy kind of stuff in there. We won't hop into the dependency injection, but if you're interested in how build variants work together with dependency injection, you can check out Jake Wharton's U2020 application on GitHub. If you're interested, I can send you the link. And Jake does a good job of showing how to use a debug variant, here's a release variant, and do different things accordingly. So for this talk, it's mainly going to be a lot of code. We'll have some slides. The slides are already live on SpeakerDeck and SlideShare. Go to slideshare.net/DonnFelker or speakerdeck.com/DonnFelker. You'll see the slides. But the code is located on GitHub, and it's github.com/caster.io. You'll see the app is called Wicked Cool. That's what we're going to be working with today. So we're going to hop right into it. I'm just going to create a simple example and show you how we can create an application with a different package name on the suffix of the package. And it's just called debug suffix. One thing important to note is that on the bottom, you'll see branch. So as we get to each slide, the branch is the branch inside of GitHub that I'm going to be working within. So if you're reviewing the slides and you're a visual cue sets you off, when you finally get to the slide where we go to code, you can see the piece of code on that particular branch. So just be sure to switch branches if you pull the code down.
So is build variants being used for dev versus prod, or maybe it's a different skin for an app like a baseball game, team type thing?
For those who didn't hear, the question was, can you use build variants for a different skin, or can you kind of white label an application, or can you just create debug and production versions? Yes to all of the above. You can do all of the above with that. I personally have not created white labeled versions of applications, but I do know someone here in town works in Scottsdale that their company does that currently with build variants, and they say it works very, very well for their application. So what we're going to walk through today is we're going to show you, we're going to walk through the examples of maybe a debug environment versus a production environment. Then we're going to kind of hop into some other live, free versus pro, and then we'll kind of get some manifest merging kind of stuff, and then also providing different resources, different build types, so you can see different icons and so forth. Turn this phone down here. All right. So here is the application that has the debug suffix, and I have the application open here, the Gradle build.gradle file. This is the root one right here that I just opened. We go inside the app, and we have another one. So we're going to go inside the app folder and open the apps build.gradle file. And one thing to note is, inside the SRC folder here, if we open it up, we see a couple of options here. We see Android test and main. So all of our code is we're used to working with is inside of the main folder. Android test is where we can perform all of our unit testing, functional testing, a bunch of different tests we can put inside of here as well. So we're not going to be inside of there right now. What we're really worried about this time is inside the build.gradle file. Now inside the build.gradle file has a bunch of stuff in here. This Gradle file looks very similar to JSON. It is not JSON. This is actually the Groovy language. If you are not familiar with Groovy, I highly suggest you follow Dan Lew on Twitter. His handle is Dan Lew, D-A-N-L-E-W 42. He recently shot out a link of a presentation he did up, I think, in Minnesota for the Android group up there, where he explained what Groovy is and what this file looks like and how it works. And for example, that Android is actually basically a method, and we're passing different things into this method and so forth. And the language is kind of confusing at first. It has its weird quirks, but after you watch that video, it makes a lot more sense. So I won't be getting into the full Groovy language today. We'll just be talking a little bit about some of the settings inside of here.
Even just knowing that it's Groovy, which I didn't know until Dan Lew actually put it in chat,
yeah,
makes all the difference in the world, knowing what's behind like this crazy syntax.
Yep. Yeah, because there's no commas like JSON or anything like that.
Yeah, just knowing that fact alone just kind of changes how you interact.
So this is build.gradle?
This is Gradle. So Groovy is the underlying language that works with Gradle. So you may see certain things there, like some things require parentheses. Sometimes you don't need them. Sometimes you do need them. Depends on kind of what you're doing. Dan's little talk provides great information about that. I think it's like 20 minutes long, maybe 30 at most. Totally worth your time. Best 30 minutes I've spent in a long time. So anyway, this is the build file. Let's hop in here. We have the Android block here. Inside the Android block, we have a bunch of different settings like the compile, the default configuration. Default configuration provides us with what we want the minimum SDK to be, the target SDK, the version code, the name, and so forth. Then we have the application ID. That's the actual package name that we're going to have inside of the application. And then what we do is we have build types. So we have build types, and we also have product flavors. We're going to get into product flavors in a little bit. But build types is our first introduction in the kind of the build variant area. So down at the bottom, we have release. Minify enabled just basically means that we're not going to minify the code. And ProGuard files means the ProGuard files how to perform ProGuard removal and minification and so forth. We won't get into that really. What we're really interested in is a debug block. It basically says, hey, when I'm going to be run inside the debug environment, the debug build variant, I would like the build to automatically add .debug suffix to the end of the package. So how do we know if we're running the release or the debug version of our application? It's actually pretty easy. We're going to go over here and make sure that your panels are visible. Down in the bottom left corner, it's pretty hard to see. There's a little box down there. When you first get Android Studio, it may look like this. There's nothing. You don't see any of the panels that are on the side. If you click that little box, you see all the panels kind of open and close. So I'll click it a couple times. You can see different panels open and close. If you open it, there's one called Build Variants. We'll open it down here. Oops, it's already open. And we see right here we're in a build variant called Debug. And there's another one in there called Release. So right now we're in the debug environment, which means for this build, this right here is going to be run. Interesting thing about this application, when I first created this application a couple of weeks ago for the first time I gave this talk, this is actually an application that's generated straight out of Android Studio. I just told it to create, I think, a drawer, and then That was it, a drawer and an activity. And this is the default application right out of the box. I haven't changed a thing out of it. So by default, this comes shipped with the debug suffix. So what we can do is we can actually go into the code now. And I'm inside of the source code here. And I'm just going to type Gradle. This is the Gradle wrapper, and I can say assemble. Just type assemble. When I type assemble, it's going to run all the build variants and so forth and build them. It'll build everything in there for me. So it's going to build the debug and release versions. We can see down at the bottom the percentage, 75, 77, etc. And then when it gets done, we're going to actually go walk into the folders and check it out. So if we go inside of, open this folder up, we're going to go inside the build, oops, go inside app and then build. And then we're going to outputs, APK. I actually have a bunch of them in here, but the one that we really want to see is app debug.apk. And then we're going to have the AAPT. This is the AAPT tool, which allows us to look inside of a application. I'm just going to navigate to that folder. We'll go to app build. App build. Okay. There's all of our APKs. I can then say APT, dump badging, and then I'm just going to actually look for the one we just created. I'll tell you why there's a bunch of files in here real quick. Oh, not FaceTime. So APT, the tool that comes with the FaceTime here. Tool that comes with the Android build tools. And what it does allows us to inspect inside of an APK. So if I scroll up, these are all of the settings inside of the APK itself. And so I just told it to dump the badging. That's the badge information that's inside of the APK, which gives us the version code, the version name, etc., and so forth. The important thing to see here is we can actually see the package name. So I'm looking directly in an APK. I didn't disassemble it. I just kind of ran this command, and it just shows me the output. So we can see here that the IO caster where you pulled that debug. So you can see debug was assigned to the end of this app. So you can actually use AAPT to also execute commands inside of your build environment to make sure that you actually have certain settings enabled inside of different flavors or variants, which is kind of nice. If we do the same thing for the original one, which is the app release unsigned, so app release, scroll up to the top here, we'll see that the package name has changed here. So we didn't really do anything crazy. We just looked at default settings installed. What Gradle did is actually looked inside of our build file, which I'll go back to here. Said, hey, we have two different build types. For release, I want to go ahead and don't do any minification, don't do anything crazy. For application suffix, I want to do .debug, and actually put an X here at the end of it. I can just sync my files if I want to inside of Android Studio, or I can just run it from the command line here. One thing to note is, two things to note. First thing is we saw a bunch of files in here. The reason why we see a bunch of files in here is because when I did this last time, I built all, this was probably 6 steps into where we're going to be tonight. And this, you see that the files have been renamed. There's a bunch of different files there. There's free ones, there's pro versions. And what happens is Gradle will leave all the old files in there. And unless we tell Gradle to clean out the build path, it'll just leave all the artifacts lying around and a bunch of build output in there. So if I want to get rid of that, I just need to perform the Gradle clean command, and that will delete it out of there, which we can do. Clean, we watch that folder. In a second, it'll just empty out. Oops, in the wrong folder here. Go back up. So, Gradle clean. You can see it just takes a second to load inside the apps, and then poof, everything's gone. The build file, build folder disappeared. Everything disappeared of that nature. Remember, we were inside of the build file. I just changed, put an X on it just to prove to you that, hey, we can just change something real quickly. And we can build it again, which will just take a few seconds. And once we build it again, this time we're not going to see a bunch of build output in there because this is a fresh, clean build. It may take a few seconds longer because there's not a bunch of artifacts or pre-built things that Gradle's done for us inside of there. We could talk about Gradle probably for 2 or 3 different talks about what it's doing inside of the build application, but we won't be today. We don't have time. So inside of build, look at the outputs again, and we'll just see a couple of files. So here we just see we have the 3 files. We have the debug unaligned, and the debug inside for the release. If we do the AAPT on the debug again, we'll see we have the X in there. So T app A. Oops. Imagine. There we go. Scroll to the top. I just provided the path to it. We can actually see here that we have debug X. So we're actually able to add something real easily to our application. So it wasn't too fancy, not too crazy, but it's something that's cool just to kind of understand what's kind of going on behind the scenes. The one thing that really bugs me about when I first get an application out of Android Studio is by default it's called app. And I don't know anyone who calls their name or application app. It's Company X, it's American Express, it's Point, it's Groupon, it's whatever you're working with. It's never called app. And so one thing I like to do is make sure that that's changed instead of my Gradle files. And so this isn't exactly a build variant thing, but it makes it nice when I'm sending the files to a client, or it makes it nice when the build server, the artifacts actually have the app name in it, and they can download it, and they can see the file on their desktop. It is what they expect it to be. So let's hop over and take it and see how we can change that. So let's go ahead and check out real quick the build.gradle command. If you're wondering why all of my Git commands are shortened, I have a big Git configuration file I'll show you guys later that just has everything shortcutted up. All right, so I'm going to go branch. You can see the different branches I have here. We do the change app name. So git checkout, change app name. There we go. That's the changes that I needed to get rid of. It's not going to reload the project because I changed a bunch of stuff. There we go. And now, down here at the bottom on the left here, we have a settings.gradle file. You can do a bunch of stuff inside of here, add subprojects, a bunch of stuff. But right now, the only thing I'm going to do is change it from what I had before. Previously, all I had in here was something that looked like this. Something like app, if I remember correctly. It looked just like that. And so what that does is it tells it to include the app directory as the app. And so I want to change that. So to change that, what I've done, Gradle says to refresh, even though this is the original file, it's still going to ask me to refresh it. What I've done is just provided, Gradle said, hey, I want you to include Wicked Cool. And Wicked Cool is actually a project directory, and this project directory is located at this file location called app. And so now, let's save, we'll go back and rebuild this thing again. Go to assemble. And we'll actually come over to the folder. We can watch the folder for a second here. So now you actually see it down the bottom, it says building Wicked Cool. Now it's actually doing it inside the build file. So it's actually nice. You can see the build output. It's actually saying, instead of saying app, like which no one uses app, we can see build, you can see Wicked Cool as the application name. Now instead of that, now we have those same exact files over here. Instead of calling app, which remember these are old from the last build, so we never called the Gradle clean. We're still going to stay there until we clean it out. The new files are called Wicked Cool, and we can then move forward. So again, not a huge thing, but it's something nice to have. And when you send your clients files, you don't have to worry about renaming them and so forth. It just does it for you. If you have many projects inside there, you can rename different projects. Currently at Point, we have one of the clients I work with. We have many different sub-projects. We have to make sure they're named appropriately. So it makes sense. So it's much better. Again, nothing huge. So this is the part where everyone's usually a little more interested is the product flavor. So let's talk a little bit about free and pro versions. A lot of questions that have popped up from this just online, and the last talk was, do I really need a free and a pro version? A, no you don't, because you can actually just use in-app building and then unlock features with in-app building. That's what a lot of companies do. A lot of successful apps do, but you'll also notice a lot of these successful apps. For example, I downloaded an app by Chris Lazy today, his new Action Launcher 3. I downloaded it, and actually, Link Bubble was another one of his. And inside of the application, it says, hey, look, you'll get these premium features for X amount of time. After that, then they're not available, but you'll have to upgrade, and there's a purchase button. And at that point, either it takes you to the pro app you can buy, or a lot of people will then open up in-app billing, and you can pay the $1 or $2, whatever, to an app conversion. So do you need it? No, but some people do want it because some people like seeing, hey, I have the free version, or hey, I have the pro version. And I'll show you how to do that now. So again, don't need it. The nice thing though is the free ones that I've noticed, people love free stuff, and what they will do is they will actually download the free version because they see it's free, and download it and play with it for as long as they can, and so forth. So it does get you a little more exposure is the big thing. A lot of people like to call this also the drug dealer model. You get the first one for free, and then the next one you kind of have to pay for. So see it how you will, but that's just kind of how it is. So let's take a look at that. It's going to be in the product flavors branch. So let's check that one out. Set ed hard product flavors. Android Studio is going to want to reload here. Going to refresh Gradle real quick. Go. So now we want to create the different versions, the Pro version and the free version. So I'm going to close down the build variants real quick. I'm going to open up the application here. There's a couple of things that I've done that we need to talk about. Inside the SRC folder, inside the SRC folder, there's a couple of new folders that we see inside here. There's free and pro. They don't have to be called free and pro. They could be called Bob and Sally if you'd like. You can call them Bob and Sally. That's what build variants to be named. We have free and pro here. Take a look at the build Gradle file. You'll see here that we have 2 product flavors. Hitting Command 1 to close down that window. For the product flavors here is we have the free version. That has the application suffix of, or an application ID, excuse me, the package name is io.caster.wicked-cool. However, the pro version, I want to have a different package name for various different reasons. This can be called io.caster.wicked-cool, the pro. So now the Gradle file knows, hey, I have 2 different product flavors. But now if I actually want to do anything different, if I only left it like this and didn't create any files, I get 2 output APKs with the same exact running code. I would just have a free version, and I would have a pro version with just different package names. That's all I would do. Why do you want different package names? Simple. Google Play will not allow you to upload the same application twice. The package names are unique. So let's open up the build variants. So inside here we have free and we have pro. A couple of things to notice about these 2 folders. This is where we put our code specific to the free version and the pro version. Notice how one is completely expanded out, the files here, the folders, and one is not. One has the package naming and so forth. The reason for that is because in Android Studio, you can only have 1 flavor active at one time. And so remember, if we have a flavor, we have a free version and a pro version. Let's go back to the build.gradle file, the free and the pro. We also have to think about, I may be developing the free application, but I want to be in the development debug environment for it. Same thing for pro. I may be developing the pro version, but I want to be in the debug environment for it. So what we actually are going to have is a product of these 2. So we have 2 build types and 2 product flavors. We're actually going to have 4 output files. We'll have a debug free, a release free, a debug pro, and a release pro. Excuse me, and a release pro. That's what we're going to have. Now, how we actually set those files up, you'll see that we only have 1 of these active, and that's again inside the build variants folder. Now remember in here before we had debug and release. If we open this up now, we have free debug, free release, pro debug, and pro release, like I was just talking about. So we can only work with 1 at one time because that's kind of what we're developing. We can't develop for 4 things at once. So that's forcing us into 1. So we're going to choose free debug, and what that does is up here, creates it as the package structure. Of course, the folders exist on the file system, but now if we actually just switch this, I'm just going to put to pro debug. Watch the files. So up here on the free, they just flattened out again, the folders. Now down here, you can see that the folders turn blue, so that tells us it's a source folder. Source code is in there. And now this is where this file is located. And so let's talk about this file a minute. Let's go back to the debug. I'm going to close down this panel here. So it's under this file. All this really is a simple little utility. How you determine something is pro is up to you. You may store a preference. You may contact the server. You may do in-app billing. You may do a whole bunch of things. That's up for you to decide. Inside of here, we have a pro helper. And this implements an interface. That's kind of just interface segregation principle. Inside the interface, I'm going to look at that real quick. It just has a method called isPro. And so I need to implement that interface. And one thing is let's see where this interface is. I'm going to hit Alt F1. It'll actually show me where the file is at. We can see over here, it's actually in the main folder. So now remember, now we have like 3 different folders. Well, 4 we count Android test. With the Android test, we have free, we have main, and then we have the pro. And So inside of main, that's where all of our main code is going to go that runs our application. And anything specific to the free or the pro version are going to go in the free or the pro versions. And so let's take a look at inside of the util, we have a pro helper. Now there's no implementation inside of the main folder because what I need to do is I need to implement that both in the free and in the pro because it's different functionality that I need for each version. So inside the pro helper, I may use that somewhere. So let's just take Alt F7 will show us the usages. And then what I see here is, okay, it looks like I've newed up an instance. So inside of some code here, maybe instead of a fragment, it looks like I'm on line 145 here. I'm just newing up an instance. I'm not using dependency injection yet, but I'm just newing up an instance and say, hey, I want a new version of the pro helper because I want to put something inside of a text that says, hey, is this a pro version? And then all it says is, uses a Boolean toString, says, hey, pro helper, is this pro or not? Are we in the pro side or not? And so if we take a look at pro helper IMPL, I'm just going to hit Command V. It's going to take us to the implementation. We'll open up the project window to see where that's at. This little button right here, little circle, will also show you where the file is located, the ones currently inside of the editor we're working with. So you see we're actually inside the debug, excuse me, we're inside of the free folder here. And inside of here, all it does is return false. And so what happens is, when Gradle builds this, what will happen is for the free debug and the free release, this version of the file will be packaged with it. So then it'll be running this code path in here. When it builds the pro version, it'll actually be building that different variant with the pro debug. It'll actually be building the other version down here. And the only thing different we have down here is just a different implementation is that, yes, we're true, return true. And so that's all it's doing is different. And so now, if I have different things inside of this application I would like it to do, I just need to make sure I'm implementing it inside the free version and inside of the pro version if I'm having to do different things accordingly. And so we can build this pretty easily. Let's do a Gradle clean so we can see how that works. Doesn't work. So we'll clean out all the files just so we can see that we don't have a bunch of junk lying around again. All right. We'll assemble everything. And now you're actually going to see, watch everything scroll by fast here, but we'll start seeing, okay, we see the pro, I already scrolled by. And then we see the free debug. And so it's building both of these versions. So forth. Up and running. Processing the various manifests and so forth for each of the different versions. And then successful. If we look at the files here, we'll build output APKs. So we can actually see that we have, lighter here, we have different files here. We have the free debug, the pro release, the free release. So we have 4 different versions of the application inside of here. And again, we can also just take a look at the AAP2 tool. So we dump the badging on those files. Build, oops, app, build, output. Okay, and we said would be cool. Oh, free, that's right. Free debug APK. Scroll to the top. We'll just take a look at the version here. Now remember, I never changed the original file. I never said, hey, we're in debug. Add this application suffix. So remember now, we'll take a look at the build file just so we can wrap our head around it. Build that Gradle. Close these windows down. We're low on space here. Remember, we're in the debug. Anytime we run a debug build, I want you to add this to the end of the package name, .debug. Oh, by the way, when we're in free, here is the package name. So in this case, we're in the free debug. It's going to be io.cacher.wikicool.debug. Now, if we look at the other ones, which is going to be release unsigned, we'll release. Just go to the top here. So we have io.caster.wikidcool. So now we don't have, we're in the release version of the free one. We don't have the debug suffix on there. If we look at the pro version, now we're going to have a different package name in there. Debug. Scroll to the top. Again, we should have a debug. So now, if we do, we see that we're working io. Scroll up here for you. io.caster.wiki put up pro.debug, so now we're in a different environment, and then again, the same one at the end, release unsigned. This will just be ending in pro. Now, if we install these applications, so I have Genymotion up here. Does anyone use Genymotion? Does anyone else? You guys know about Genymotion at all? So, for those of you who don't know about Genymotion, Genymotion is a very fast emulator for Android. Android has been known to have very slow emulators unless you install the Intel tools to make it a lot faster, and that's going to be a hassle in itself. Basically, Genymotion runs on top of VirtualBox. I have a free personal edition, and you fire it up. It literally will start up within 5 to 6 seconds after you start it the first time, and it's up and running super fast. It's faster than any emulator I've used. It's probably faster than my devices that I use at home. So I always use Genymotion to initially to develop on, and then I'll kind of load everything on the phone and test it on the phone. Okay, so we actually have, from the previous version, a couple of wicked cool versions here. Let me uninstall those here. So we can actually see these things install. Oops. Install. Install.
Gradle will complain if you have a flavor defined and not an interface, not the interface implementation.
If it's not implemented in one of them, and depends if you're using dependency injection, you can override it too. So it will in certain instances, yes. Okay, so now if we just take these files, and then with Genymotion, it's nice, you don't have to do ADB commands, you can actually just go ahead and install it manually. So you can actually just drag this file over.
No way.
Bam!
I did not know that.
Oh, wow.
So you see, we're in the debug, we're in the free version. So you saw, remember that code we took a look at? You just kind of wrote something into the text view. That's all it's saying is pro is false. So let's go ahead and go to the pro debug, and we can just drag it over. We'll close it down, and we go is pro is true. Now if we actually go inside of our application here, we actually see two different. Remember, there's two different package names. We have two different applications, both called the same thing, so that can be kind of confusing. We can actually fix that with other settings to change the either the resource, which we'll do here in a little while, or we can change the actual app name, which I've done in all my client projects for all the debug versions. I always put debug in the name, so just in case we don't accidentally send a file to someone and we install it and also like, yeah, it's great, let's ship it.
So typically, do you guys use debugs so that they're not obfuscated, or they're going against dev servers, or both?
Good question. So do we use it for debug or just going against dev servers? Depends on really the client. What I have experienced is if the client has enough infrastructure built up and they have like a CI environment or a staging environment, we'll have some settings in the application that allow us to say, hey, debug by default always points to CI, but we'll also have a way to actually just kind of flip a switch inside, like a little hidden settings menu or something that's exactly is only in debug. For example, at Point, we actually have a debug panel in one of our apps where we can slide it open and there's a whole bunch of settings we can turn on and off. And using these build variants, I can actually only include it in the debug version of the application. And so in that case, we'll switch it back and forth. So yes, to answer your question.
So we use debug and prod versions, but we have Easter eggs to convert a pro version that's in the App Store also to debug servers and stuff, but not do debug logging.
Yeah,
That's something in particular when you build a signed APK, it strips log.d and log.e, not log.e. It strips the two lowest levels automatically. So
it strips it from the code. So
yeah, so you'll never see a production log.d or log.i. So that actually is a big reason why you wouldn't want to sign.
Okay. Do you have any questions on the free and paid version? Make sense? That was a lot to cover. So there's a lot of things you can do with this. Remember, like I said, you don't have to go with free and you don't have to go with paid or pro. You can name these whatever you want. At MyFitnessPal, when I was working there with them, our app was on the Google Play Store. It was also on Amazon. Due to different configurations, we mainly targeted like the Kindle Fire device, where a lot of the users happen to use it. Kindle Fire device does not have a camera, or the version that we were targeting did not have a camera. So we then made sure that, hey, hey, for the version of Amazon build, we did not include the camera code. That was inside of only the Google stuff. Also, certain ad networks that we may have wanted to use were not available, or Play services was not available on Amazon. So we had to make sure all that stuff was turned off, and we enabled something else inside of Amazon. So you can actually get pretty creative with these different ones. And we had, it would just output these different files. So we'd have our build server kick out 4 or 5 different files. We would debug the release versions for our Amazon, for our Google releases, and then we also had QA versions, which had a bunch of other hooks built into it, so the QA department could attach onto it easily with their tools. They didn't happen to use Android Test; they use their own like Selenium-based testing frameworks that they connected to. So a lot of stuff you can do with it. Now, digging deeper into this, what we can also do is also update the manifest at basically build time. Do some pretty cool stuff with it. And mainly, one of these things we can do is manifest placeholders, and this is really useful. And so let's hop into that real quick. Placeholders. Oops. Check out that code. Okay. Build here. So manifest placeholders allow us to actually replace things inside of our application. The Gradle.build file is already open. And what we see here is I have, inside of the free version and the pro version, I want to change the names. Remember how we looked at this app on the screen here? We have Wicked Cool, Wicked Cool. I have no idea which one's pro and which one's debug. The system knows, but I have no idea. What we can do is update the actual application app name, and that's really easy. And we can provide anything we want here. Again, these are values I could call Bob or Sally or Fido or Jim or whatever. These are just keys that I'm providing. I'm just having them call my app name. And so if we go take a look at the Android manifest, this is the Android manifest, and Alt F1 to show it where we Alt F1 enter. And this is inside the main folder here. So this is the main code where our regular Android manifest is. Look in there. Command 1 to close the project panel. When I hit Command 1, if you guys are wondering, you'll see just a little Android student tip. You'll see the number 1's underlined. You'll see the 3 or 6 is like Android tabs and so forth. If it's underlined, it has a number under it, you hit Command and that number, and it'll toggle that. So if I want the Android panel open, it'll open the Android panel. If I want to find, it'll open that one, and so forth. And you can play with it that way. So inside of our Android manifest, I want to replace some values here depending upon what build variant I'm using. And so I'm using those labels. On line 8, you can see that here. Inside of line 8, a little more, we can see that we're actually replacing the label of the application with something called app name. And remember, this app name is inside the build Gradle file. We're providing it here inside of a setting basically called manifest holders, manifest placeholders. So I can provide many of them. You see I have one commented out called provider authority. I'll talk about that one in a second. But you can have a whole bunch in here if you wanted to replace a bunch of different values.
So you have to provide both of those in both places, otherwise you can't template matching.
Yes.
Or there is a place to put default values.
Well, this is Groovy, so you could do a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, this is a whole programming language in itself. So we could actually just provide some default somewhere and actually have it render that default, otherwise render this. I mean, you can write whole functions in this file and everything. For example, in our debug panel, I have a function that executes Git and gets the latest Git hash of the latest build, and then throws it into the debug panel so I can actually see the Git hash that I'm running. So for whatever reason, if I send something like, this is broken, I'm like, well, what's the Git hash number? Like, oh, we fix that in the next version, even though we haven't done a dot release or something. So we have app name here, and then run build time, we're gonna go ahead and replace both these values inside of here. And I'll show you that here in a second. Now, one of the things that this is really useful for is if you work with content providers, you'll know that they have to have an authority associated with that content provider. And the authority has to match your package name. This is very important. If it does not, your application will not find the content provider. So if you have a content provider with com.google in it, and then your package name is com.google.pro, the content provider will not find the actual content provider it's looking for. You tell it to say, hey, get content resolver, etc., it won't find it.
So we were able to actually use one content provider authority between free and pro apps too.
You are?
Yeah.
With different package names?
Different package names.
You have to show me how you did that, because I wasn't able to do it, and I know another guy that's Scott that comes to the PHX Android group, they ran the same problem, they solved it the same way we did.
in our case, we have to share stuff through a content provider between free and pro apps.
Yeah.
So we came up with something, I can't remember.
Yeah, because that's what we do. That's what we do too. And I've done a lot of apps actually that have to use the same content provider and just enable different things, based upon the settings in the app. So one way that we did it was we just enabled a provider authority, and then inside of the Android manifest, wherever you would have your content provider, we would then just provide it with a key, just like you'd seen it inside. Above would be $, just with provider authority, and so forth. And then once that's in there, at build time, you get the correct pro and free version. Now there's different ways that I did it inside of Maven. I have done it different ways, doing replacements at build time as well, so very similar. So if we build this now, build it here, and then we'll reinstall these applications. And then you'll actually see the package and the actual application name change on the actual device, which is kind of cool. Makes it a lot easier, especially if you have like a QA department and where you're sending it to your boss too. They want to test it. You got the right version installed. It's kind of a visual cue. So Pro debug. Install free debug. All right.
And the trick we use is we use signing for release builds and unsigned for debug builds. So you can't override one with the other. You have to uninstall and put the other one too. So
That's true.
one trick that we use.
And this may have been for these. The launcher by default will cache applications and application names. This is launcher 3. It's of the Android open source project. So I'm just going to uninstall them real quick to show you so they're not cached anymore. The only reason I know that is because I had to recently build my own launcher for Point. I had to look at the launcher 3 code. That's actually the name of the application. Your Android launcher on your default Android phone is actually called launcher 3. It's kind of funny. You'd think it'd have a different name. Cool. Bro. That's all the same one twice.
I'll do it 3 times.
Probably, huh?
Need the pro one.
I think you already did the free.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Something's going on there. Well, for some reason, we're not seeing a pro. We check the badge. Oh, you know what? Let's check the badging real quick on it. So we do the pro debug. Name, platform. There it is, application label. Looking cool pro. What's actually showing up inside of the application right now is the Android manifest. I had it set in the wrong location. I need to change this right here. So what should actually happen is I should change this label. Because this is what Android's using is this is the intent filter to look up what can I launch. And then by default it uses that label of that activity. So I actually have that setting wrong. So if we just change this to app name, and we rebuilt it. Good to go.
To remove it too, if I use the application default
Sure.
instead of the app activity.
Sure, you could do that. So let's remove these real quick while it's rebuilds.
You always have to build it through the command line.
The only reason it's a good question. Thank you for asking that. The only reason I'm building through the command line is because in Android Studio, I can only build one thing at a time. So I can only build the debug. Remember how the build variant settings?
Sure, yeah.
And so what they'll do, it'll do assemble, it'll build all of them for me. So I can just build them all in one shot. So normally if I'm working in a development environment, I'll always be in Android Studio. I'll never be in the command line except for like some Git commands. Or if I want to run AAPT and inspect the badging or something. I'm just doing it here for the simplicity of actually being able to show you guys all the files.
But
Thank
through
you.
Android Studio, does it actually, when you build one of the variants, does it keep the other variant out of the folders?
No, it doesn't
structure?
clean.
Okay, so you could just thumb through it, launch one.
All right, now so there we go. Let's take a look at that one. So there we go, Wicked Cool Pro. There's our Pro version. And then we just install our free version, our debug version. We'll actually see what we have. Just the regular one. So now it's easy to tell the difference. We just added the Pro version for the other one. So that's it there. So we added a bunch of different manifest values inside of here, and that's just all done inside of the product flavors. Inside there you can do manifest placeholders. This is called manifest merging. So you can actually also provide additional manifest values, which I don't get into here. But you can actually have a debug application manifest with extra settings inside of it. Inside of a free folder, you could have a debug Android manifest inside of this free folder. You could have another one inside of the Pro folder that has different things. Maybe the Pro version allows you to use the camera, and the free version does not, so you need a different permission for the Pro version, etc. So you could do different things inside of there. You don't have to repeat all the settings. It will merge them together for you. So release and debug composability. For example, you may want to do something particular only in a release environment compared to a debug environment. One of those things is using Crashlytics. Do you guys know what Crashlytics is? Everybody? For those that you don't, Crashlytics is a free service from Twitter that basically allows reporting on your application for crashing. So when the application has an unexpected crash, the crash will get sent up to Crashlytics. You'll get notified via email if you have that notification turned on. And then it'll provide a stack trace, everything you can see, the device it crashed on, the operating system, all the details, so you can kind of fix it and be notified proactively for your users. They also provide new things called insights or
Answers?
Answers.
Yeah, it was originally, the code name was insights. I'm used to using it then. It's called answers. Answers provides details about your application as it's running. You can actually see how many people are inside of your application. When we installed it in MyFitnessPal, we opened it at one point. It's about 39,000 people at that point had the application open, which is just absolutely amazing. You just see the number climbing up and down like 100 at a time. People entering food on their phone. Pretty nice. So here we'll talk about how we can use Crashlytics only in a release environment, which is most likely what you want to do. All right, so
You want to use it in debug too, right?
what?
You want to use it in debug too to catch it, right? No?
I don't want to. For me, I don't. So what I use is Timber now, based on my own logging mechanism that I wrote previously years ago. Just recently, I started using Timber from Jake Wharton, and Timber is a logging mechanism that allows you to basically plant different trees, is what it's called. But they provide different implementations at runtime. So at debug time, I want to plant a debug tree. All it does is log everything to Logcat for me. I can write my own implementation to say, hey, anytime I hit an exception, I just want you to blow up. You want to just throw a runtime exception anytime you hit it, if that's what you want to do. You could write your own implementation. And then there's runtime release. You could provide one which is called Crashlytics. Crashlytics tree, and what it does is it takes all the logging that's not, like Mike said, not debug and not verbose, and logs it up to Crashlytics. So it'll just call Crashlytics.log, and they have logging features there. We'll log any of the warnings, and of course we'll log exceptions, and so forth, so we can actually see what's going on at the server. I think I forgot the branch name on this one. It's going to be Crashlytics. We'll check out that branch right now. It's not going to be anything much different than we've seen so far. We still have the Pro Helper. We still have Pro Debug, Free Debug. All that stuff's still the same. We're just building. Each time we're doing it, we're just building a little bit further into it. So let's go inside of the free version. We have the Pro Helper. I'm actually going to close down the free version. Excuse me. I've actually created another folder here now. So we had the debug from before. Excuse me, we did not have debug from before. We had debug given to us for free through the just the build variants inside of the build.creative file. Now I've actually created a folder inside of here, and I've created an application. So let's just open that file real quick so we can take a look at it, see what it does. So this is just the an application, and it extends Caster application. Let's do that. Caster application is just a regular Android application. I'm going to find usages, see where it's used. Okay, it looks like it's just used in a class, and it looks like it's used over here. Okay, so let's take a look at the Android manifest. We actually see that we're using Caster application INPL. So for INPL for implementation, inside of Android Studio, hit Command B. Even if you're in an Excel file, it'll take you to the definition of that file.
So which one will it take it to? Depending on the build variant, it'll take
Depending upon what build variant you have selected, it'll take you to that implementation. So we can open that build variant there. Another way to tell is actually just take a look at, let's follow the file path here. You'll see debug up there. You'll see it here in the debug path. Or you can just hit Alt F1, oops, and enter, and you'll see it's inside the debug folder. And so what we have inside of here is, this could be done just by overriding on create. I'm just getting fancy here by providing an abstract method. And this is an abstract class. So anyone who implements it has to implement the init method. And all we do inside of, maybe say inside on create, we call init, like this. You could override out on create anyway. And what this would do is call init, which is right here, and we can see who implements that, and that's going to be inside of here. So right here, say you might debug logging like Timber or something, or just use the Android debug logging or something. Now, if we change this to a release version, so still working with the free environment, say, hey, show me the free release. Notice how this icon turned red up here. It's hard to see, but there's a little red J in it. That means it's not an actual source file at this time in Android Studio. We'll go back, close the build variant down, close the find window. You can actually go inside of the release folder now. You can see here's a new version. Now I haven't pulled in the Crash Lakes dependency, but here's what you would do. You'd actually just call crashlakes.start and then pass this for the context. And now Crash Lakes will only start when your application is in release mode. And so you can have a debug environment that doesn't do anything, maybe uses Timber or uses your own favorite logging framework to log to the debug environment. You could also use something in like a special QA environment where you have a QA, you're using Log4j, and you write a special plugin for it that in the QA build variant that you have logs to a specific build server or a specific logging server, which the dev team and QA team can review to see what's happening during automated testing or something. So maybe if you're always crashing on a particular device, you can actually see those logs if you're building for that environment. Any questions? So it's pretty easy. All we're really doing is just implementing a couple of files in a couple of different folders. And it makes it real nice. And the same thing goes for resources here. So we can do that with resources. We can do it with files. We can do it with Android manifest, layouts. We can do it with icons, etc. And so let's just check this one out here. GS, reset. I'm going to reset this again. All this does is just kind of get rid of all my local changes. For those who's familiar with Git. All right, go back to Android Studio. Now remember, we have all these new folders here. On the side, we have the debug, we have the free, we have the release, the pro, also that stuff. Now let's just say, for example, we want to provide a different resource, like a different icon for an environment. We could do that very easily. We have the Java folder, which we have for our free stuff, which is our pro helpers, but I've also created another folder here called res. And this has all the different resources I have that I want for the free environment. So maybe I want the free environment to have maybe a different icon. And so maybe I want to have this really fancy, highly paid graphic designer make me a nice icon here. And then what I can do is when I build this application now, we'll have a different icon. Because if we actually go into the Pro version, notice I don't have a folder over there. I don't have a res folder over there. I'm only doing this in free. So I don't have to do it in both. I'm just overriding here what the application launcher is going to be. So if we take a look at this, we have IC launcher. I'm going to go open the main folder where all of our regular code is at. Look inside of here. And we also have an IC launcher. This is the little default green Android guy. But since we're running in a free build variant, what will happen is it'll use this one for by default. So let's just go ahead and test that out. Let's read a Lou symbol. And then when this gets done building, I'm actually going to drag that free debug file over into the emulator, and you'll actually see the icon be different. So I'm actually going to uninstall it so we don't have to deal with the caching issues real quick. All right. Now we've built that. There's the free debug. I'm just going to drag that over. There we go. You probably saw a change right there. So now I actually have Wicked Cool with a free icon. And so this is, I like to do this a lot too with the debug environment. I'll maybe take the icon and I'll kind of just drop it in some photo editing program and just draw like a red label over it and just write debug on it on the corner across the front. just so there's a huge visual indicator that I am working with a different file or I'm sending a different file. And that saved me a lot of times when I'm going to send this to a client and I click on the wrong file. Oh, just visually I can look and there's like, this is the wrong one. So it's a really useful thing.
We do that inside the app too, so it's blatant.
Yep, and you can. That's a good point. Is you can do that with layouts. So if you have a root layout that maybe you're using like as a container, you could do that. Provide a different implementation of that same layout with the same IDs, but maybe it's a linear layout. And that first element now, or say it's a relative layout, would be better, or frame. On the top, you can then put like a view up top that just has a text view that goes across the top that just has orange and says debug, and just kind of floats above it. Or you could do it in the top corner, like a lot of people do a little triangle in the corner, which is an orange triangle. Be like, oh, I know I'm in the debug version. That works very, very well. Any other questions? So there's a lot of stuff that you can do here. When I first did it, this is kind of how I felt, especially when I had it working with Circle CI. For those not familiar, Circle CI is a continuous integration environment you can use for free. I have a screencast I'll be uploading shortly on how you can set your application up on Circle CI. You provide a little circle.yaml file, and then you can actually have it build your applications for free. So it's a free Android continuous integration environment, so you don't have to worry about setting up Jenkins anymore.
It's the same as Travis CI?
Similar to Travis. It's not the same. It's similar. Same concept, but free. So Travis CI has two. Travis has the open source version, which is free, and then Travis CI has the private one, which is for money. So
How is it different from Jenkins?
Is it lightweight?
Cloud-based?
it's hosted. It's hosted CI.
Oh,
So
you don't have to host it.
Continuous integration as a service.
well,
And so you get a certain number of builds for free. I think I actually might be unlimited last time I looked. Unlimited builds for free, but their Circle CI's restriction was the concurrency that you would get out of it. So like you get one build, basically one build at a time. So if you're trying to build like 50 different projects and you have to, you're white labeling, for example, and you have to kick off 50 different builds, you're going to be there a while, unless you pay to upgrade to get 50 different concurrent connections. But for individual projects where it's just you and maybe another person running on it, or even a small team, it works out really, really well. So again, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can get into with this. I highly recommend checking out Dan Liu's talk on Groovy, because I thought I understood the build.gradle file pretty well. And then I watched Dan Liu's talk on understanding kind of what the Gradle file really is, and then understanding Groovy underneath it. And then all of it made sense, like, oh, now I know why that bracket's right there. It's not JSON. It's just Groovy trying to be smart with syntactic sugar for me. Like, I didn't know that. Or, oh, that's actually a method call. Instead of it just being a little parameter and so forth. So it's really interesting to learn that. I definitely take the time to find, but if you can. That pretty much wraps it up. If you guys have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. I would love to help you out, or I'll be around here for a little while too. Any other questions? Could be about anything. Doesn't have to be about Android build variants either.
So does Gradle work only in Android Studio, or you can use it with Eclipse? Because we have migrated to
I don't know.
Android
You use
Studio
Eclipse.
yet.
I don't know. Eclipse.
There is an Eclipse plugin. It's not very well supported. But Gradle's built. Android Studio is built on top of Gradle.
Yeah, that's like its main thing.
So is build variants recent that they added to Gradle, or it's been there?
They're pretty early on.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
they just got
I
more
think with
powerful.
what you showed us, we have like tons of skins and free applications and pro applications, and then other library projects and all that stuff. I think this might make it all into one or two projects or something.
Exactly, yeah. And we had the same problem. I had a whole bunch of like projects that I pulled together with Maven and then did those trickery.
Yeah.
And then I found Gradle and figured out how to do it. I was like, oh my goodness, it's so much easier.
And Android Studio, good so far?
Yeah, I've been using Android Studio since .1, since it came out. It was really rough for the first few .dot releases, but that's great. If you're an IntelliJ user, you can also use IntelliJ. All the stuff is inside of IntelliJ as well. So I think Android Studio has different features than IntelliJ a little bit, but they're like a release behind IntelliJ because they're building on the IntelliJ platform.
It's pretty stable right now.
Yeah.
We've been using at least.
1.2 has come on, right?
Yeah, I'm still on 1.0. Yeah, it's the hard thing is when you, like, the weird thing is every time I've learned when they upgrade Android Studio, there's always one or two things that seem to tweak it a little bit that might set you back a few hours. And when you're like in the middle of a release or like crunch time, like you're just like, no, don't upgrade. Nobody upgrade.
Not even the tool set. I mean,
And the very last, Android Studio is based on the new version of IntelliJ 14,
14,
I
right?
think.
Yeah.
So I
14.
figured that's a
Pretty
good
stable.
jump.
Is it pretty stable now?
Oh, I didn't upgrade.
I haven't
to
upgraded
the-
yet. It's 1.2, I think.
I usually run the Canary channel.
That's pretty gutsy too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's, but actually, it's been totally stable for me. It's good. I haven't had any problems.
I used to run Canary for a while too, and then I had to hop on with a bunch of teams, and then I kept breaking everything. So it's like, all right, I'll stick to the stable channel. Sorry, guys. Anybody work on any cool projects at all you want to talk about? Yes, no?
So if I wanted to put this project into continuous integration like Jenkins or wherever, I just have to put the command Gradle W and that's
Yeah, Gradle Loo assemble. That's what I do. So there's other commands you can do, like if you're running unit tests and you have like an emulator, and actually I haven't done this on Circle CI, but apparently you can fire up an emulator as well, and you can run Gradle Loo.connected check. And what that'll do is fire off all of the expressive tests or whatever tests you have running against the actual UI. You can run those too. But for just default continuous integration, then yeah, I just do Gradle Loo assemble, and then I capture the artifacts out of the APK output folder, and then I just allow those for download. It's not too bad. That's the nice thing about, for those of you who don't know what Gradle, like there's different things. You can do Gradle Loo and Gradle. So Gradle might be, if you just run Gradle from the command line, that means you have Gradle installed somewhere, it's in your path, and that means it's running. So Gradle Loo is basically running the Gradle wrapper. And you'll notice inside of, let's take a look here. This isn't really about the talk, but it's interesting. You notice we have a Gradle folder here. Inside of here we have a wrapper folder. This is the Gradle wrapper. And we actually have the Gradle wrapper properties. We open this up. Scroll over here a little bit, you'll see that this is Gradle.2.2.1. This is the version of Gradle that this application is using. This is very useful because you may encounter an application with clients where you open up this file and it says Gradle 1.10.0 or whatever, 1.10.all.zip. And what that means is this application is only using Gradle 1.10. And so when you build it from the command line, what will happen is if you do not have that version of Gradle installed inside the Gradle path, Gradle Loo, there's a Gradle wrapper, will download it for you, install it into that location, and then execute off of that, which is really nice. So you can have different applications depend on different versions of the build framework.
And Gradle Loo, you can actually kick off from Android Studio as well?
Gradle Loo, I think by default that's what it uses behind the scenes. But when you first set up a project, so let's just close this down. Let's say close project.
So you should check Gradle Loo into your source space for that project.
Yes, please check that in. So we'll open an existing project. I'm gonna go to source. Get cool. I'll open the build. I'm gonna open a brand new project. So if you downloaded this is what you do. You'd open build.gradle. Here's what it's gonna say: is import this project for Gradle. This is where you can actually say, hey, use the default Gradle wrapper recommended. That's the recommended approach. We're gonna leave that selected. If you prefer, whatever you have a particular reason why you only want to use this version of Gradle, then you'll want to make sure that you use your local version of Gradle and set your Gradle home path. And okay, what that'll do is actually execute Gradle Loo using your local path. Now you hit delete existing project and import. That's if I was. You guys won't see that because I don't include the IntelliJ files. And then it will load. It's asking me to reload the project. Sure, okay. That's because it noticed the files. Now, one thing to notice here, if you're new with Android Studio, you may be noticing, or if you're going to download it, like the gentleman in the back said his first few days, Android Studio, this will be the default view that you get here in the project structure. This view is an absolute lie. It's lying to you. Don't listen to it. I think that should not be the default, in my opinion. The reason is look at this. We expand that out here, and that's not what the file system is. I like to see things on the file system, how the file system is, and just put the drop-down list here, and just go to project. That'll actually show you the file system view. So that's key to note when you're looking at something in Finder or in your Windows Explorer, and like, where is this file? It's in my project. Make sure you come over here and check out to make sure that you're not looking at the Android setting. All my projects, I always go straight to project here. Much easier. That's it.
Awesome. Thanks, all.